Awesome. It came. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to that in the description below, and it'll give you a pretty good idea of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus, which is we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, where I take a recommendation from you guys, a movie that I've never seen before. I watch it, and then I let you guys know what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and ultimately whether or not it is syllabus-worthy. Today's recommendation is Woodchipper Massacre. And the recommendation came from the Wee Nerds, who recommended this in our So Bad It's Good video, which gave me a little bit of an idea of what to expect when it came to this movie. Although the Wee Nerds, they seem to have their fingers on the pulse when it comes to movies that are so bad it's good. If you've seen some of the recommendations they've made, they've got some pretty good So Bad It's Good movies on there. In fact, the last one we did of theirs was the Bloody Bloody Bible Camp, which I actually wound up enjoying quite a bit. So that gave me a little bit of hope that Woodchipper Massacre might equally be good. But, you know, knowing that it is a So Bad It's Good movie, got to temper your expectations just a little bit. So were my expectations met? Did I like it? Did I hate it? How did I feel about it? Well, I'm going to tell you all about that right now. As I said, the movie we're talking about today is Woodchipper Massacre. Woodchipper Massacre came out in 1988 and is a very low-budget Z-grade movie. Z-grade meaning even lower budget than a B-grade movie. Directed by a man named John McBride, who's kind of known, apparently, for making these Z-grade movies and has quite a bit of a resume for making them, although I'm not familiar with most of them. He did one called Cannibal Campout that I think I may have seen. But he's not a big household name because he doesn't spend a lot of money making his movies, and it shows, to be honest with you. But we're going to talk about all that in just a second. First, if you haven't seen the movie before, the movie is about a dad of 3, a single dad of 3, who has to go away for a business trip over the weekend and has the aunt come over to watch the 3 kids. The aunt is kind of domineering and abrasive and really kind of making the kids feel oppressed and not happy. And then at one point something negative happens. There is a bit of an accident and the kids have to figure out how to deal with it, and from there things spiral out of control more and more as hijinks abound, as they tend to do, especially in low budget movies like this. But I will not spoil it any further than that. However, I will point out right off the bat, the title Woodchipper Massacre is a bit misleading. Or they have a much different definition of massacre than I do. There's not a lot of massacring in the Woodchipper. The thing about this movie is that it's very low budget. In fact, I think I read somewhere that the entire budget was $400, not counting the cost of the camera. And yeah, you can kind of tell. Basically, they're making a movie at somebody's house using what they've got. And you know, more power to them. You know, I'm a big fan of the do-it-yourself stuff, and I love a movie that is made with love. That there's people who love the genre, love horror, and just want to make something of their own. I'm a big supporter of that, and I'm a big supporter of this movie doing that. It's worth noting that this was recommended as a So Bad It's Good movie, but it's not actually that bad. For the most part, it's decently shot and decently scripted. The audio is mostly good, which is a big problem you usually see in these low-budget movies, that you just can't hear things. And this one, I could hear the dialogue pretty well. I think it might be ADR, but if it's ADR, it's done fairly well. The movie is technically not nearly as garbage as I've seen so many other movies with similar type budgets be. Like, for example, this movie's a higher quality grade than, say, the Camp Blood movies, which is saying something. And this movie, like I said, it's shot fairly competently. Things are lit okay. I don't want to oversell it. It's not like it's made extremely well. You know, John McBride is not some sort of auteur or anything like that, but considering the resources, it's an eminently watchable movie. It's not really that bad. It has some pacing issues. You know, you're going to see a 5-minute drive to the train station, and you're going to see that whole thing. You're going to see people do yard work for several minutes, montage of yard work. So it's clearly trying to stretch out the runtime a little bit, but it's nowhere near as bad as, say, something like Birdemic. You know, we've seen much worse than Birdemic, where they're stretching things out. And the thing about Birdemic is it's like almost 2 hours long. This movie's a lean 120. So it really, you know, and when I say it went to an hour and 120, not 120 minutes. My God. But it's kind of fast paced in the sense that it's not a very long movie. Even though there are parts that do drag, it doesn't really feel that bad because it's a fleet movie overall. Before you know it, the movie's over, as opposed to Birdemic or movies like that, where it feels like just going on and on forever. I also felt like John McBride kept this movie fairly simple. His script is fairly tight. It's not a very deep script. It's not trying to do too much. It's just trying to tell kind of a wacky story about a wood chipper, and it does what it came to do. Again, I'm comparing it to Birdemic, which had a lot of different themes they were trying to work in, had a lot of ambitions that it really just couldn't meet. McBride keeps it simple. He doesn't really try to do more than he's capable of doing. He knows his limitations, and he kind of works with that. So I got to give a lot of credit to him knowing what he's trying to do here and doing it. The thing that I feel like was missing was some of the camp. The camp doesn't kick in until like the first kill, for me at least. After the first kill, it got pretty campy and pretty fun, and the dialogue got funny, and the actors were really selling me on this stuff. But it took a long time to get there. Going back to those pacing issues, that first kill doesn't happen till like a half an hour into the movie. And again, the movie's barely over an hour long, so it takes a long time for things to get going. And the movie's called Woodchipper Massacre, so you kind of know where it's going, but it takes a long, long time to get there. That was a problem for me, but we're going to come back to that point in just a minute. Once the kill happens, that first kill, I started having more fun because the acting is not great, but it's big in a fun way. For the most part, I'm having fun with these actors because they look like they're having fun in their roles. Everybody's playing it really big, kind of campy, kind of tongue in cheek. And, at first it's kind of just like big, bad acting, it's just kind of like, oh, they're bad, but they're kind of big. But as the movie goes on, especially once that kill happens, the dialogue starts becoming really funny. The way that they react to this kill is funny because, like, for example, the teenage girl who's more interested in trying to get her boyfriend to come over to the house, and they've got a dead body there. It's funny. It works for me. It really is good. Where the acting is a little bit of a strain for me was the woman playing the aunt. Her name is Patricia McBride, which maybe she's John McBride's mom. She's a little bit of an older woman. I don't think she's his wife, but you never know. But she's playing the annoying aunt, and she does a great job of being an annoying aunt because she annoyed the hell out of me. The problem I have with her is that her religious doctrine dialogue is really repetitive, and she tends to deliver every single line with the same inflection, the same cadence. So she's just yelling at these kids in the same way over and over again, very shrill, emphasizing the same middle part of the sentence, really, really strange and annoying and grating. Again, I think it's by design, and it's very effective if it is. But again, she's there for a long time doing these lines, saying the same stuff over and over again. And, you start to feel like the kids. You really start to feel like you'd like to see her go, frankly. Again, that's kind of an effective thing. It kind of puts you in the shoes of your protagonists, and makes you feel like the way they feel. But it did get to me, man. It did get to me. And this is where I wish they would have gotten to that first kill a little bit earlier to get the action rolling a little bit faster. They would have been much more tolerable. The ant character would have been much more tolerable if you didn't have it stretched out to a half an hour before things start to actually happen in the movie. And I think the reason for that is that low budget. That $400 budget, they can't show the gore on screen. The kills don't happen on screen. There's virtually no gore in this movie. There's really not. And they do a little bit of an okay job of trying to suggest it, but frankly, we've seen movies do it better. Suggested violence off screen. Frankly, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a lot of the violence happens off screen, or you don't really see the actual stuff happening. It's just suggested. And unfortunately, McBride's not able to pull that off. Again, very low budget. He's working with people who aren't professional actors. It's clear they're not professional actors. And he probably doesn't have somebody who can do anything cool in terms of special effects. He's doing competent camera work, but that's probably about the best you could ask for. So it's a little bit unfair for me to kind of critique this, but this movie needed it. This movie needed a bunch of gore. This movie having a bunch of crazy gore, even if it looked silly and fake, would have been a big boon to make this a lot more fun. I mean, the movie's called Woodchipper Massacre, and that woodchipper is just not leveraged nearly enough. It takes forever. They set it up right in the very first scene, and then they don't even get to it till halfway through the movie. It's really a waste of a good woodchipper. Fargo, this is not. Tucker and Dale versus Evil, this is not. And it's unfortunate because with a title like that, you have some expectation of viscera and blood, and you get very little blood and absolutely zero viscera. And I think this movie would have been so much better with it. honestly, this movie has like the bones of a trauma film, but without the grossness, the goriness. And yeah, I think it needed that. I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more had it been more like a trauma film and had some of that grossness, the grotesque, scenes of blood or whatever, vomit, gross stuff. This movie was screaming for it and it didn't have it, and it's unfortunate because this is where the movie's effects or visuals needed to go over the top like the acting. The acting was there. The acting is on par with trauma style big acting, campy acting. It's right there with it. The dialogue is kind of right there with it. The script is basically simply simple enough that it's not as good as maybe a trauma stuff in terms of complexity, but it's fine. But they really needed some visual go. They needed, not to have 5 minutes of a guy driving in his car. They needed to have some blood on the walls. They needed to have some gross screaming and stuff like that. They needed to not cut away from the kills. And there's not nearly enough kills. I won't say how many there are, but there are way fewer than a massacre would make you think there would be. So again, it's budget. I understand this. It's unfortunate. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing what McBride could do with more of a budget because I know that this has got to be the biggest hindrance of this, but it really hurts the movie quite a bit because there is the ingredients for something a lot more fun, a lot more good, and yet it misses the mark because it just can't deliver. It doesn't have the money or the ingenuity to deliver what it's promising in its title and in its setup. And that's a little bit unfortunate. Is it so unfortunate that it keeps it off the syllabus, though? Well, let's find out. So, Woodchipper Massacre, is it syllabus worthy? Absolutely not. Not even close to the movies that are in the so bad it's good subgenre, and not even so much because of the quality. Because I kept comparing this one to Birdemic, and positively, like I think this is maybe better than Birdemic because Birdemic is a bit of a slog. But when Birdemic finally goes crazy, it goes crazy. Even though the special effects are cheesy and terrible, it has them in there, and this movie didn't. Which leads me to my point about this movie, which is I think this movie is ahead of its time. This movie was made in 1988, and I really have to tip my hat to it being made at that time because if it was made now with the access to digital equipment and digital effects and stuff like that, I think this movie could have gone there. It could have gone bug nuts crazy and gross in the way that I think it needed to go. And it's unfortunate that it's made way ahead of its time and when those resources wouldn't have been available to the director. That's a little bit unfortunate. Otherwise, I think this could have definitely been a Birdemic level kind of so bad it's good type movie, but it misses the mark here. It's not bad enough to really be that bad because it's not as bad as Birdemic, but it's not good enough to be campy fun, even though it's not as good as Birdemic. It's not bad enough to be bad, not good to be good, so it's not really going to make the so bad it's good subgenre for me. But I don't want to say nothing positive about it because I do think the movie was made with love. I do think it's a noteworthy effort. I do think that John McBride has talent. I think that he knows how movies work for the most part, and I think that unlike Birdemic, where it just drags on and on, I think his pacing issues are more just to try to get to feature length rather than because he doesn't understand pacing issues. And so I can tell that the people in the movie had fun, which makes me have fun. I still enjoyed watching the movie. It's just not anywhere near the quality to make it on the syllabus. I mean, you could maybe argue that it could be a contender for the do-it-yourself, but if you look at the do-it-yourself video, the subgenre for do-it-yourself, man, the quality of those movies are far superior to this one. They probably spent more money, frankly, too, admittedly, but far, far superior. And we've seen better quality with similar budgets as this movie. So while I praise the quality that is on the screen, I do have to detract for the quality that's not on the screen, the gore that's not there, the pacing issues that are there, a lack of cleverness in terms of trying to work around showing gore. It's unfortunate. I'm being a little harsh on this one, maybe harsher than it deserves. But if you're asking if it's going to be on the syllabus, well, you got to be a little harsh. You got to be a little discerning. I mean, you'd think maybe I'm not with some of the choices I've made, but I really put a lot of work into figuring out what goes in the syllabus. Woodchipper Massacre is not going to make the cut on that, but it doesn't mean it's a bad movie because it's not that bad. In fact, I wish it was a little more bad. I wish it was a little bit more good, but I can see why somebody would say so bad it's good. I definitely think that it's one that is worth mentioning. It doesn't have any sort of reputation or audience. There's not much about it on the internet. It doesn't seem like it has a big cult following or anything like that. And maybe it deserves it. I do think that. I do think that it's a fun enough watch. You could watch this with your friends, have a good time. I think you could recommend this to people who like silly, campy movies, and they'd probably enjoy it. At least it wouldn't be a waste of their time, and it's short enough that it won't feel like a big waste of time. So I definitely think this one deserves a little bit more love than it gets. I'm very glad that the Wee Nerds recommend this one. Thank you, Wee Nerds. Again, you guys are coming through. This one, not as good as Bloody Bloody Bible Camp. I'm going to be honest with you. I really liked that one a lot. This one I didn't enjoy as much, but I do think it's noteworthy. I do think it's worth mentioning, and I'm glad you guys brought it to us to check out. And I've got many more from you, but by all means, give us some more suggestions. And all of you, give me some suggestions in the comments below. I'll add them to the to watch list if I haven't seen them already, and we'll talk about what other movies you think could warrant some love and some sunshine on them. But for now, let's shed some light on the horror trivia pursuit card. It's about that time where I look at a horror trivia pursuit card and try to answer it here on camera without cutting, so you know I don't cheat. And because there was no gore in this movie, in Woodchipper Massacre, let's go ahead and do the gore category on the card. Okay, so here's our question. In 2007's Teeth, what possession does Dawn O'Keefe throw off a cliff? I have a pretty good guess on this one. I'm not 100% sure I know this one, but I'm like 95. I'm like 95% sure. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I do enjoy Teeth. We talked about Teeth on the channel. It's a fun movie. I wouldn't call that one a so bad it's good, because I don't think there's anything bad about it at all, but it is definitely campy a good time. It's fun. It's got some gore in it that is pretty unsettling. If you haven't seen that movie, it's definitely one to check out, because it's, the premise of the movie is a girl who has vagina dentata, teeth in her vagina, if you're not familiar with it. And hijinks abound, as I like to say, and the hijinks are pretty gruesome in this movie, and I absolutely love it. It's got a great way of sending a good message, but also keeping things fun and light, but also super gory. It's the kind of thing that I kind of would have liked to have seen a little bit in Woodchipper Massacre, frankly. Just, the gore flashes, there's not a ton of it, but it's enough to make your stomach turn and make you queasy and uneasy. And I feel like Woodchipper Massacre missed an opportunity to do that. Teeth is a good example of how, even with a lower budget, not a $400 budget, admittedly, but you could do something more with that. So I would definitely recommend Teeth. And if you haven't seen it, you're probably going to have a hard time answering this question. I'm going to take my guess now. I've kind of prattled a little bit about it. So gave you some time to think about it. Go ahead and start thinking about it. Lock your answers in now. I'm going to go ahead and make my answer now. My answer is a purity ring. My purity ring guess is because the main character, Dawn, apparently I would not have remembered her name if it wasn't on the card. She is a virgin, and that's a key point in the story, in the movie. And that she's got a purity ring. She's part of the purity club and stuff like that. And so I remember the purity ring being something in the movie that was noteworthy, and I remember that scene, and I'm almost positive that was what she threw in there, like 95% sure. So we're gonna go with purity ring. Let's check to see if I'm right. Her purity ring. Her purity ring is the answer. And yep, I remember that one pretty well. I like Teeth a lot. I've seen it a few times. I really enjoy that movie. So that one is easy for me. If you hadn't seen it, it probably wasn't easy for you. But what did you guess if you didn't know? Did you guess something gross? Let me know in the comments below. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoy Woodchipper Massacre if you check it out. I do think it's worth your time. Again, thanks to the Wee Nerds, and thanks to all of you who hang with me here, who leave comments with suggestions or just enjoying the videos. Thanks for all of you who stay till the end. That's going to be it for this week. Until next week when we do something a little bit different. Class dismissed.